Okay, welcome back. Now we're going to stamp our pear with some antique linen, and I've already placed it on the block. And I always stamp this way to make sure we have even stamping. We're just going to ink it up. We're going to make sure that we put our pear over to the side, closer to the edge, so they'll leave room for our wonderful stamp set. And if we put it in the middle, our wonderful sentiment would run off the paper. And so here it is all stamped. Now we just want to make sure that we wait for it to dry completely before we start adding some water with our watercolor. If we do not, it has a tendency to run and mix with our colors too. So first what we're going to do is we're just going to layer on some ink, and I'm going to be using the barn door first, and then we're just going to color. You're going to be really surprised how quick this goes and how you really don't need to worry too much where you're going to lay down this marker, because you're going to spread the ink all over the place and it's just going to go really quickly. So we're going to start here, and this is where we have the red. And we're just going to add a little line along the edge, and it's not going to be too thick. We're going to leave it quite thin, and I'm just going to go down almost to the end or the bottom of the pear, but not quite. Now I'm just going to color with some mowed lawn, or nope, actually shabby shutters, and I'm just going to color a whole lot of area. And this reason is because we're using a lot of green. And we're just going to keep coloring. And then next we're going to use our dried marigold, and we're just going to color the center. And again, don't worry about how detailed it is where you're going to put your marker, because you're just going to move around that ink a whole lot. Now I've gotten my watercolor brush really saturated, and this is called wet on wet. And so what you do is you get the entire pear wet and you move that ink around, and you do it as quick as you can before it starts to dry, because this is a key point. Once it starts drying, you're going to have edges. And like with any watercoloring, we really want to make sure that we don't have any edges. So the whole entire pear is getting wet right now and covered with water. And I do it this way because it's just quick and easy, and you'll see how great this effect is once it dries. It's pretty simple. So just move around that ink, and you can see I'm just kind of moving it around in no particular pattern or way, just kind of keeping to the shape of the pear. So curving it in and then curving it in on the other side too. And again, just getting it lots of water, lots and lots of water. And just moving it around, making sure that those edges are completely covered too. I'm just going to lay down a little bit more shabby shutter green. I felt it was just a little bit too light, so I'm just going to add a little bit more color to it, and also a little bit more of that beautiful dried marigold color. I do love that color. So it is wet, the paper is still wet, so I don't have to do this whole area over again, but I am going to blend that color in just a little bit more and move around that ink just so it can blend in. Now I'm going to grab our lighter color, which is our tea dyed, and I'm just going to go over the branches very lightly on the top. And again, down the stem. And then I'm going to go back over it with the darker color, and I'm going to be using the Vintage Photo, and that will be our highlighted or darker area. Just kind of laying down that contrasting color like it. You can already see how it's already forming. I'm going to be using the number 2 brush here, and I'm going to actually dab off some excess water on the paper towel, because you really don't need a whole lot of water to move around the ink in this littler area. So make sure that you do dab off that excess water, And just again, move around that ink and down the stem as so. And we'll wait for that to dry too, and we'll move on to the leaves. For the leaves, I'm going to be using Mowed Lawn for all of the leaves, for all the colors. I'm not going to be using any other color but this color. And when I designed the stamp set, I already drew in the lines, the details, and that's where you should be putting your darker colors. So in the middle like so, and I'm just going to use my number 4 brush, and I'm just going to dab off again some excess water, making sure that you leaving that line, that center line that I have drawn for you there, that is your darkest area. So just push that ink to the farthest edge of your leaf, leaving that dark center very dark. And what we'll end up doing later on, and I'll show you, is we're just going to go back over it after it's dry, and we'll put in those details of that leaf. Okay, I think I'm going to put some music on for you guys, and you can sit back and watch me color these leaves, and I'll be back in just a little bit. Okay, I'm back. And now we're going to add some beautiful details to our pear, and we'll also add some details to our branches and the leaves. Because now that this is pretty much dry, you can always tell if it's dry by the back of your hand. Never use the tips of your fingers because that's where the oil is in your hand. In the back of your hand, there's not as much oil, so you won't leave any fingerprints or anything. So I'm grabbing my gathered twigs and I'm just going to add some little dots, and these are just little extra details that are on that pear, and it gives it that more realistic feel. And just randomly putting them any which way or where you want to put them, coming down to the bottom and just kind of tapering off down at the bottom of it. And adding a couple more spots, just kind of filling in where I think that I need to put some more. And now I'm just going to grab my vintage photo again, and I'm going to use the fine end. And then again, when drawing the stamp set, I put the little details in of where the branches and stuff, and then you can just kind of go over that area, and that just gives it that little bit extra pop, and you can kind of see that extra detail work. It's just a little bit extra that I love to do. Okay, I'm back. My light just burnt out, and I keep putting those little extra details on that branch. It kind of scared me actually. And just keep adding little tiny details right along here. And we'll also add some details along the edges. And this just kind of gives it that extra dimension that I think just makes your card go from a normal card to a wow card. Okay, for our final details, we'll use our mowed lawn again, and we'll use that fine tip. And the leaves are all completely dry, and we'll just give that little bit of extra detail work to the leaves, using darkening up those veins on those leaves, and just kind of focusing on the edges of some of them too. Okay, and we're finished. And I'll see you in the next video as we put everything together.